Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our OutBack Powers Mojave Installation and Programming webinar. Before we begin, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please notify me by typing your question in the questions section of your control panel on the right side of your screen and clicking send. We will have a Q&A session following the presentation. You're welcome to submit questions at any point during the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible after the presentation. There will also be a brief survey that will pop up in a new window immediately following the webinar. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to complete it, we will send you the reward of the slides to the presentation. If there are no questions, which it looks like we're all set there, I'd like to introduce our OutBack team that'll be with us today. Chris Canfield, Regional Sales Manager, Lonis Tuss, Applications Engineer, and Jorge Guzman, Applications Engineer. So without further ado, Chris, I'm going to pass the baton over to you.
All right, thank you, Erin, and thank you everyone for attending. I'm assuming that a majority of y'all that are on this webinar were on the first one. So before we get started, I just kind of want to lay out the differences between what today's webinar is going to be compared to what the first one was. The first one, as you remember, was more of an introduction and overview on the specifications and features of the Mojave ESS for AC coupling. Today is going to be more focused on the actual installation of it. And the way we're going to do this webinar is as close to quote unquote real life as we can. You heard Lonis and Jorge are on with us as application engineers. They both have a Mojave AC coupled on their homes. Or at least near their homes. It's they're both AC coupled to a system, to a grid tied system that they have on their homes. They're both going to do some demonstration, or Lonis at least is going to show his screen, his UI screen live. And what Jorge has done, and some of you may know this already, Jorge has done a bunch of really good instructional videos about Mojave, including installation videos where he literally shows some of the work he did on installing the Mojave that he has on his place. I'm going to be showing those videos, and then afterwards, Jorge will jump in with some comments about the mounting, the wiring, and the commissioning. The videos in total, there are 3 videos in total, are about 20 minutes, but they're really the best instructional tools I would say that we have right now regarding actual installation of the Mojave. So without further ado, I will get going and we'll get into those quite quickly here. There we go. All right, a second introductory slide gives you a little bit of an idea as to what it may look like. This is not Jorge's house, but this is what, nor this is Lonis's house. It's far too sunny. They both live in Washington, so there's no way this is either one of their homes. But just to give you a rough idea as to what it would look like when installed against a garage wall, there you have. So Jorge will speak a little bit about this again after I show the installation video, but the battery is, it's a battery, it's heavy, it's big. It took this special lift, but Jorge on his own was able to move the battery into position. And as I showed on the previous slide, it's ground mounted, so you don't have to worry about jacking the battery up whatsoever. It is meant to be a ground mounted battery. And without further ado, I want to get to this first video here. And I will blow this up. And it will take just a second to load, and then we'll be good to go. It is taking Okay, I'm assuming that that worked. I asked in the chat if there were any issues with anyone seeing or hearing the video, so I'm glad it worked. It's not often on these presentations that you get to put a face with a name on them, but now you know what Jorge looks like. And Jorge, why don't you talk just a little bit about the just the mounting of it? I know it's very similar. I believe it's very similar backplate wise and everything to the Radian, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. In fact, we use the exact same bracket as the Radian, so same method. The only difference is that the Mojave total height, meaning that the battery plus the raceway and the inverter does bring the system up to 7 feet and 3 inches. So
Yep.
that is from the ground level all the way to the top of the inverter. So that's why in this example, I used a lift just to get the inverter up that high because it goes over the shoulders. So if you don't have a lift, then I definitely recommend having a second person or a third.
Okay, good deal. Why don't you talk a little bit? I know I showed that slide before. Why don't you talk a little bit about moving the battery? And I'll go back to that slide actually. Just to show the kind of the kind of hand fork truck that you had.
Yeah, so this is a industrial appliance hand truck that has kickback like caster wheels. So the kickback caster wheels allows the hand truck to kind of tilt back and rest on the 4 wheels, so that puts all the weight onto the hand truck itself. So all you got to do is once you lay the battery onto the hand truck, then all you got to do is just basically push the hand truck. What I did here is I grabbed the battery from its back. However, what I would recommend is to do the opposite, is to tilt the battery so that the front faces the hand truck. And there's a good reason why we don't include the aesthetic front covers. For this reason is so that when you move the battery up to against the wall, then you don't damage any of those covers. So that's just one tip here that I would do different next time, is to just make sure that you put the front of the battery, which what you see here, those metal covers are the internal covers of the battery.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Good. All right. Well, thank you for that insight. I will get to the next few slides before we get to the wiring video. Mounting is pretty basic, obviously, other than the moving about of heavy equipment. The mounting is pretty simple when it comes to the Mojave. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to get too much. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jorge.
Oh, just one more thing is that the example that you see in this slide is designed for the inverter to be mounted 6 inches above the battery. So the wiring kit that you see here, which is the battery conductors
Yep.
and the ground wire, is all been cut to length to be exactly with this 6-inch spacing. However, it is not frowned upon to mount the like let's say that your garage ceiling does not allow you to have a 7 foot 3 inches a clear space, so you can actually mount it to the side or in any other configuration. So if that's the case, then you can simply just make your own cables. That's totally fine. There is knockouts on the sides of the battery and also on the inverter.
Yep, correct. I was going to ask about that going into the wiring video, so I'm glad that you explained that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was the only slide before showing the next one. So I'm going to get into showing the wiring video. starring Jorge Guzman. Okay, thank you, Jorge. One thing to mention, you saw the CTs that Jorge installed in the video. There are CTs included. One thing that jumps out to me as not at least by OutBack standards, not a very technical person, is the amount of room in the box, Jorge, and you can comment on it compared to the Radian. The amount of room that you have to do your wiring looks to be it looks to be a lot more spacious than the Radian is.
Yep, and that's the exact direction that we're heading. You know, is to simplify all the wiring. You know, granted, this is an AC coupled inverter only, so there's no PV wiring whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But it is way more simpler. You know, because we did moved away from having bus bars and all those additional components. So you know, all you got to do is come in straight into the breakers. And all the DC wiring, again, it's all part of the kit that comes with the factory system. So very easy to install. One item that I'd like to point out, Chris, if you would like to go back to slide 5, which shows the wiring between the.
There you go. Oh, Jorge, it sounds like we lost you.
No, I'm still here. I just haven't seen the slide move.
Oh, really?
We're looking at the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Oh, now it went back to the links. Okay, so if you see on the illustration on the right-hand side, you'll see between 0.4 and 1, which is the negative battery bus bar, and the chassis grounding bus bar. I depicted as number 1. There's a bond there, negative to ground bond. That is, used to be a field cable that had to be wired, but now that is done at the factory. So that is one less item that you would have to wire in the system, and we're going to be updating, you know, the documentation, but just to give you a heads up that, you know, that's just one less thing that you have to worry about.
Cool. Very good. Yeah, there must be a little bit of a delay, Jorge, in
Gotcha.
changing the slides for everyone. So I'll try to keep up to it. Okay, Jorge, here's another wiring slide if you'd like to comment. It's the last one before I'll show the commissioning video.
Yeah, so one other thing that you probably need to be aware is that there is no internal bypass. So if you're familiar with the Radian or FXRs, those you know, come included with a bypass assembly kit, you know, which is an additional bypass breaker with the interlock plate. So those are they're not included here. So that would have to be added externally. And the generator breaker is also sold separately.
Yep. What we found is was right at about 50% of the Radians that we sell got had a generator hooked up to them. So we just decided, because there's so much room and because it's a simple 60 amp breaker, we decided to not include it with every Mojave, seeing as, you know, potentially in up to half of them, it's just going to be wasted. So that's why it's not in there. It's a 60 amp breaker that we sell. It's a 60 amp breaker that others sell. I mean, you can see the DIN rails there, and it'll be a real easy installation when needed.
Yeah, and that's the same case with the bypass assembly. You know, once you go beyond 1 radian, then those bypass basically become obsolete, and you would have to go with an external one. So then you have excess, you know, parts in the load center that just take a broom and will complicate things. So not having a bypass in multi-stacks will definitely simplify things.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Jorge. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead, and the final video that we're showing is the commissioning of the system. Once again, starring Jorge Guzman. Looks like All right, Jorge, sorry, pardon me. Jorge, before we get to a few of these slides here about the configuration and then turn it over to Lonis so he can actually show his units monitoring live. Any comments about the commissioning process? Looks to be pretty simple, not having a Mate 3S and everything to get Mojave programmed.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things that is, to that point as being simple, as soon as I powered up the system and the BMS made communication to the inverter, then the inverter auto-detected the battery. So there was no battery settings that I had to adjust whatsoever. So I just went in there and basically had to adjust, a few things based on my application, which made it way more simpler. And for future sake, once the Mojave inverter is able to installed with other batteries, like Energy Cell Blue Plus or REs, those will have drop-down menus that you can select them and the fields will auto-populate. So even if you don't have a Mojave battery, the UI just makes it very simple to to program those battery settings.
Yep, as you can see on this particular screen, and like Jorge mentioned, the way it's programmed right now is to work with the Mojave battery. You see all of these settings here. When you click on Mojave BMS, all these settings go away. It's like, okay, it's good to go. It knows the settings to work with the Mojave battery. And as of now, and for a while at least, we will be selling it as the entire ESS. So that makes the commissioning process, at least as far as pairing up with a battery, about as easy as it can be.
Yeah.
Jorge, you want to talk about the grid settings? And Lonis, feel free to jump in now as well. I haven't turned it over to you yet. I got just one more slide before I do that, so you can show the unit live, and then we'll go from there. But any comments on the grid settings?
Yeah, so this is when it gets really interesting, and Lonis will speak more to this. As once you enable the CTs and then adjust your input limits, export limits, this is where I think Mojave really stands out, which again, we'll show you how that's going to operate. But yeah, if you operate under California Rule 21 or HECO or standard, IEEE, this is where you can adjust those profiles.
Good deal. And then, you know what? We won't talk too much about this. I will turn it over live to Lonis to show the Mojave that he has hooked up on his place, so that he can show you live what all this stuff looks like and does. And it's pretty neat. He showed me the other day as far as adjusting power flow and the such, how quickly it happens. Just one thing to mention, almost everything, I think everything other than the transformer itself is field serviceable and field replaceable. And for our distributors, for AEE, on the price list for the Mojave are the spare parts. So there are several different boards. They're all replaceable. The fan kit and everything is replaceable in the Mojave unit, the inverter charger out in the field. So, all right, Jorge, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jorge, very much. I appreciate it. And all right, Lonis, I am going to switch this over. I'm going to give you permission to share your screen, and you got a good 5 minutes to go through this before we hit Q&A. So over to you.
Okay, let's see. I can see show my screen, and come on, baby, let's go. Let's see. Let's go to Mojave, and let me know if you see the Mojave or the UI. Okay, and I'm gonna put my screen a little higher or lower. So this is the Mojave, and this is the UI that comes on it. I'm hooked up right to my my unit here, and you can see the power flow, what's going on right now. I'm kind of charging the battery at 52. I'm under the status, so this is where you kind of look and see what each device is doing. So you can look at the inverter, you can look what the battery is doing, you can come down and see what the grid is doing, the generator, and go over to the network. Some of the neat things is you can go to the settings and you can see I've got the import set at 2500. So this is to the input of my house. So it's saying, hey, don't let any more than 2500 watts through. And there's basically 4 settings. This is the one that says the import limit. There are 3 settings for the battery, and really just 2 depending on what battery style you have. One is that, hey, you can take this many amps out of my battery. If it goes more than that, we will violate this import limit. If you come down to, I'm using AGM batteries, so if I come down to low battery cut-in, that says I have taken my battery as low as I want. So if I get there, then let's go ahead and let the grid handle it. We're not connecting and disconnecting from the grid. It's there at all times, and we're just using microprocessors to say at what point. So I'm going to try to demonstrate the support function, but I want you to keep in mind that the time of use is exactly the same. This import level, when you choose a time of use, it says, okay, I'm going to set that to 0. I'm not going to allow anything to come through. And what we have is a weekday, a weekend, or a daily. 3 things you can choose: weekend, weekday, or daily, and there's 4 time periods in each one of those 3 brackets. So it's pretty, pretty easy to do. You just select a time and say, yes, I'm in time of use. Right now, I'm going to go back over to the status, and if you, I've set my computer down here. Let me come over to the grid. And this is really cool. Right now, you see, this is the external CT. This is what's coming into my house. Okay, 4,400 watts. Now I'm going to turn on my electric heater. I've got this set to 2,500. I'm going to turn on my electric heater and watch how quickly this operates. I'm going to turn it on, and when I hear my heater start, I'm going to say now. Now. So we jumped right up to 2,400 watts. And there you go. I set it to 2,500. We've got 2,465. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my electric heater. And now it went up to 2,489 watts. I set it to 2,500, so pretty darn close. And if we come back over to, let's go up with the slider. You can see I've got a little bit of AC coupling going on, but I've got my battery says go ahead and send it out. It's going to the loads on my main panel. So now I am backing up my house. I've set it to an AC limit. It's in wattage, and it's pretty darn immediate. Turn those loads off, turn off my electric heater, and just show you instantly, it's saying, hey, guess what? Now I'm going to charge that battery up. So that's really how quick and immediate it is. I find it pretty amazing. A lot of times I'll go to 2,490 watts, plus or minus a couple watts. At one point I had it set to 2,000. I saw like 2,004 watts. So pretty darn accurate. And now we're charging at 1,300 and, charging and loads coming in from the grid. So that was just kind of what I wanted to show. You can see the support function where it says don't allow more than this in. Time of use does exactly the same thing, except it automatically sets the import to 0. So nothing comes in during these time frames. And the nice thing about it is you can set your battery current, don't allow more than this. Take it down to this level. If you're using our battery, the lithium battery, it does percent of SOC. Minimum SOC is where it'll allow it to go down to. And this is to protect your battery. You say, I want to use my battery during these times or down to this level. And once it hits that level, it says, okay, something has to give. Your battery is low, so let's go ahead and we'll let it come from the grid. We don't have any relays turning on or off, no clicking, no transfer time. It's just done microprocessing. And because we have the CTs, we can see what's coming in and then limit it and use it. And it's really nice to be able to, you know, the other day I was sitting there, I was looking at my system and I was like, wow, where's all that wattage? There's nothing on in my house. And I realized I just took my monthly shower and the hot water was on and I didn't even know it was on. So it's really interesting to see what my house takes. I was doing doing a laundry load the other day and I'm like, wow, that's 4,000 watts.
Takes
okay.
a bit. Hey,
yeah.
Hey, Lonis, thank you so much. We have 13 minutes left. I have one quick question for you before we get to Q&A, and that is, so you've been dealing with Optics RE for a long time. You know, the Optics RE that obviously is comes along with the Radian and the FXRs and all that good stuff. What's your experience with this optics compared to the other optics? Now, I know the other optics is fairly easy as well, but what do you think about the optics version that comes with Mojave?
I really, really like it. Right now we have this, you can hook the Mojaves up to the beta site and it's not nearly as good as this AI here, or UI, excuse me. This is really, really easy to manipulate and go through. And again, with the CTs, I can see exactly what's coming into my entire house. You can look at the loads, easy to adjust. And I've troubleshot, man, all over the world on a daily basis so much. I absolutely love optics. I'm one of the representatives on the wrenches list. And when people call up and say, hey, yeah, I'm doing this, you can go and look at the site and go, oh, yeah, I see that. This is what's going on. This is why I think it is. So I love optics. This UI is just as good or probably better than optics.
Very good.
I'm big fan, big fan.
Cool.
When you can see things like this, it makes programming so much easier.
Very cool, which is obviously the objective of communication and programming, protocol that we have. Thank you very much, Lonis. I appreciate it. Jorge, I appreciate it. And Aaron, I'm sure you've been lining them up. If you want to fire Q&A at us, and I say us in quotes because I'm sure the questions and answers will be for Jorge and or Lonis.
Sure. So I'm just going to start firing away. We've got a few to get through, and just to preface, if there's some that we don't get to, we'll be sharing these any unanswered questions with the OutBack team, and they'll be able to reach out to you directly via email and make sure we get all these answered. So the first one is the minimum and maximum PV inverter sizes for AC coupling.
That would be an 8 kilowatt grid tie inverter. That would be the maximum, and there's no minimum really.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's see. That one covered. That was asked a few times. I got a couple here on CTs, and I think I can kind of combine two questions here. Can other CTs be used like Rogowski coils? And do the CTs need to be installed for operation?
The CTs do not need to be installed for operation. They come with the unit, so there's really no reason not to use them. And it really helps us control what the inverter can and can't do. It's the support, time of use. They're really great information to see. And the Rogowski coil is basically for arc fault. So a little bit different of coil. We'll send the CTs right with the unit. So
perfect. Okay, so next one up here, can the battery part be paralleled to double or triple the storage capacity?
No.
I know that one. The answer right now is no. There's just a single DC bus. A different size of battery could be, eventually will be, well, when we sell them loose, when we sell the inverters loose, you would be able to put a different battery on there and perhaps a bigger, different battery. But as of right now, there's a single DC bus on there, and the way we're selling it is as the ESS, and just the single battery you can currently install with the stuff.
I do have 3 strings of our AGM batteries on this.
Mm-hmm.
So in the unit, you can say, I have, this is my battery, and I have how many strings of them. So you start out, this is, I have 100, or, you know, this is my battery specs, and I have 3 strings. So yeah, once, you know, right now we're selling with our battery, but I've got a system with 3 AGMs hooked up, 3 strings.
That's what I was going to say is, you know, you can't take what Lonus's system is and assume it's something that you're going to be installing, because again, for now, and we're not sure how long it will be for the foreseeable future, we're selling it as the ESS. So it will come with the battery. And I know this was discussed on the first presentation. The battery is a 15 kilowatt hour. It's actually 14, I believe 14.8, which gives it about 12 kilowatt hours of usable power at 80% depth of discharge.
Awesome. Okay, so next question. When battery, let's see, let me read this. When battery is in backup mode overnight, if the customer used all of the battery capacity, will the inverter be able to wake up the AC coupled inverter to start recharging when the sun comes out?
Not certain of that question. Jorge, do you?
I think it's asking if the battery gets used overnight. The question is asking if the battery gets used overnight, will the grid tie inverter, quote unquote, wake up the Mojave inverter in the morning when the sun comes up?
We have a low battery cutout and a low battery cut in. We will stop inverting when we hit low battery cutout, and that doesn't shut the inverter off. If you're on the grid, it's going to be passing through and the solar will be alive. If you happen to be off grid and low battery cutout happens, we'll stop inverting. But good question. I'm not 100% certain on that. Because you are AC coupled.
Okay,
if you're on the grid, yes. If you're off grid and AC coupled, I would have to say probably no, because we're going to stop inverting at low battery cutout. Now, if it's like any of our other gear, the low battery cutout takes a certain amount of time, so a shut off and a turn on would allow the inverter to be up. It would take 5 minutes for that other inverter to see us, but we may have to get back to you on that. I'm not 100% certain of that situation. Jorge, do you have anything?
Yeah, same here. I'm trying to look for that answer, but I know that on the lithium battery there is a reserve capacity so that we avoid a shutdown for that reason. But it will require a manual reset for the inverter to invert again. And for the AC coupled inverter, then it does need that voltage signal for it to, you know, wake up. But we can confirm for sure.
Okay.
So that makes it a potential issue. If I heard you guys correctly, and I may not have, if I heard you guys correctly, you're saying it's a potential issue if it's AC coupled off grid, but should not be as much of an issue, or should it be an issue still if it's grid tied and AC coupled as well?
I would think only off grid.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. But we'll get back to Aaron. We'll get you the answer to that question. And again, I'm putting we in quotes because it'll be one of the guys smarter than me on here that'll get the answer. We'll get that to you, and you can send it to whomever asked that question.
Okay, perfect.
And the group, actually. The whole group as well.
She actually said, she just chatted in right now and said, thank you, Jorge, that answered it. So
Okay, good.
We're all
Cool.
good. Okay, so I think we've got time for a couple more here. Can the batteries be charged if they are below 30 degrees Fahrenheit? If not, is there a safety so they will not charge?
So the battery will only operate charging, discharging down to 0 degrees Celsius, so 32 Fahrenheit. So yeah, it will not charge the battery under that threshold.
Okay, and I think we may have room for 2 more, but let's see how quickly we can answer this one. Do you sell a bypass assembly to install the inverter like the Radian?
Chris, I know that product management was working on a external solution, but have you heard if that has been moving forward or something that we're going to offer, or no?
I think it's one of those quote unquote in the near future things, not as of right now.
Okay.
Okay, and I think our last one here, does the AC couple breaker come factory installed, and if so, what is the amp rating? And some of these, I apologize from my point. You may have answered them, and maybe it just it's very possible it went over my head. So if I'm asking anything that you've already answered, feel free to chime in on that.
So the inverter output breaker, it's the 60 amp DIN rail that comes in the load center, and yes, that is a factory pre-wire.
Okay. Perfect. Well, it looks like we got most of these questions answered. I have to give there's a gentleman on the chat here, Jason Andrade. I have to give him a shout out. He's been answering some questions on here, and
Hey,
wanted to get a shout out here. So yeah, so I think any other questions and anything else that kind of comes in then the last few minutes here, we can answer through email. But yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of you for such a great webinar. And for all who are attending, just make sure to take the survey that will pop up immediately following when we close it out. And we will be sending you the presentation as well as the link to the YouTube recording on Monday. We'll be sending both of those over to you. So thanks again for joining us. Make sure to follow along as we have more in the series here, and have a wonderful weekend. So guys, I just want to thank you. If you have any closing thoughts, now's the time.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate it. You guys don't know this. There was a lot of behind the scenes in uploading the videos to make sure that they played and the audio could be heard. We were having all kinds of problems with that, so we got that all figured out. Aaron got that all figured out for us, so I appreciate it. One last thing, Aaron, I was wondering if you knew when the drawing for the Mojave would be for the attendees of, those that are entered are only the ones that attended this and or the previous Mojave webinar.
Correct. So assuming that this is going to be our last one in the series for now, for this particular raffle, I have that right, Chris? Is that correct?
Yeah, for AC coupling it is. We'll get more stuff out, and we may do more of these as more functionalities and things are available through Mojave, but specific for AC coupling, these two were definitely it was a short series of 2 as far as the introduction to the Mojave and the installation of the Mojave. So yep, I would say after this one.
Awesome. Well then, yeah, I think that we will internally we will connect, and we will get the names drawn hopefully sometime next week, and get that name out, and we'll yeah, if you were lucky enough and smart enough to attend both of them, you got two names in the hat. So so we'll look forward to having that name drawn next week, and we'll announce the winner through contact you directly, but also through you know, an email marketing kind of blast. So that'll be coming out to you soon.
Very cool.
So is Jorge and myself eligible to win a free Mojave?
Unfortunately, no. But
Oh,
I like where your head's. I like where your head's at.
I attended both of these.
I'm gonna make sure your name's not in the hat.
Okay.
You guys already have your Mojaves.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. This is another really great webinar. Lots of engagement, which shows me, you know, you guys are presenting some really cool information. So, so just have a wonderful weekend, and everyone, all our attendees, thanks for coming, and stay tuned for more webinars in the future.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, all.
Bye-bye.